Nowadays, the necessity of using the forest and the way that this should be done are becoming crucial issues. The forest represents a significant economic asset as a raw material resource and as renewable green energy. The biggest challenge is to keep in balance the three roles of the forest: economic, social, and ecological, and this requires substantial knowledge. This balance can be achieved with the help of sustainable forest management. In this spirit, the amount of raw wood material that can be processed according to sound economic and ecological principles must be used most effectively. The local community profits more if the raw material is processed by the local professionals and leaves the region as ready product, even though export companies eager to cull directly can often make a better offer to forest owners. So we must bear in mind that the forest offers a lot of services and value in addition to sheer lumber. We need only think outside the box to notice them. Let's keep in mind for our next walk in the forest that animals can be unattentive. They do not always immediately notice an approaching person. Let's walk silently in the forest and shrubbery. Where once stood dense pine forest, today we find shrubbery. Wild animals gather at such promising places because here they find everything needed for their survival. A clearing in a forest, locally called a growing up because it doesn't stand bare. If the planting of shrubs is done within 1 year after the clear cut, the erosion of the soil can be prevented. The silver firs planted here tie together the upper layers of the soil, and so the rains cannot wash them away. In the first years, herbaceous vegetation characterizes the maintained territories, quickly growing and short-lasting plants, followed by larger woody plants, shrubs, and finally pioneer tree species. In place of the dense forest, a more favorable, thick shrubbery forms, including raspberry and blackberry bushes. This is how vital habitats for wildlife evolve. The various plants offer shelter and rich food resources for the animals. During the winter, rich sprouts of the deciduous species and the leftover leaves of shrubs become vital. As some sounds can deter animals from foraging, noise caused by humans collecting mushrooms and wild berries is as damaging as trotting upon and removing their food supply. The diversity of animals and vegetation is thanks to the growing prevalence of eco-conscious human activity that helps restore the natural conditions on this small territory. Arthropodous species are well represented here by the long-legged harvestman, which has only 2 eyes. Spiders, such as the nursery web spider, carrying her well-packed eggs under her body. The wolf spider, and the jumping spider, easy to recognize with its 2 big metal eyes. The female Napoleon spider looks for an undisturbed feeding place. The crab spider melts perfectly into the environment when it chooses its location well. A wonderful and highly vulnerable world that can be easily destroyed. It can perish before we would discover it, get to know it, and grow fond of it. Now let's pay attention to the sounds coming from all directions, providing us with important information about the species present here. two young bear cubs, highly vulnerable without the protection of their mother. They are after one thing, food, and for this they are ready to even leave the secure shelter of the forest at these early hours. Wild berries such as raspberry, blackberry, blueberry are delicacies for us, but basic nutrition for the bears. Let's remember this when we are yelling and chasing the wild animals out from the bushes, or when we are buying wild berries. This period of the year decides where they are going to live. If they are chased out from here, there will be no other choice than the rubbish heaps around the next community. To these two cubs, the raspberry bush and the surrounding forest means the whole world. Here, everything depends on the human's attitude. The road is in perfectly good shape because only a small quantity of wood was processed and removed. Large-scale removal would have encouraged erosion. But with this small-scale removal, the heavy machines didn't have the time to leave much of a mark on the road. This road might be the explanation for the presence of sheep, although not only current forestry laws but also old village laws ban the grazing of all domestic animals on such areas. Domestic animals are competition to wild animals. They are causing significant destruction in the quantity and quality of food and shrubs. The doe and the stag are already looking for each other's company. The mating season is approaching. Although it is not their main staple, raspberry is consumed by deers as a supplement, so much so that it is worth even the risk of falling victim to the predators. The two cubs spotted in the morning are on an expedition tour. Before they start to eat their dinner, they make sure there is no danger around. During their youth, they have to fear not only humans, but mature male bears as well. Bears are alpha predators, and as such, the well-built male bears are responsible for regulating the population in a rather repulsive manner. They kill the cubs that do not instinctively run away, nor are protected by their mothers. Jolly music from a marriage celebration in the village can be heard, but still there will be movement here the whole night. Young bears are arriving earlier to avoid the mature ones coming at twilight. To be able to observe them, I climb up a 4-meter high tree. This gives me the feeling of security. I am not disturbing the wild animals, but my fee for this benefit is that the aesthetics of my camera shots will suffer, since the animals recorded from here look like they are pressed into the ground. early evening shots were filmed at the edge of the forest, there's busy nightlife around me. There are species that prefer to move in the night rather than daytime, perhaps in part because the chance of meeting humans or other problematic species is reduced. It's great luck that at night humans prefer to sleep, watch television, or look to their own species for entertainment, rather than coming out in the nature and disturbing the animals. Sunbathing in the morning sun rays, a common yellow swallowtail and the very similar scarce swallowtail, are drying the dew of their wings. If we are planning to go out in the nature, we shouldn't forget to take along an animal and plant encyclopedia, because some species are very similar. By learning to differentiate them, we can develop our perception and widen our knowledge, and this is a great way to get close to nature. This day is promising to be hot, so I am strolling in the forest, surrounding the raspberry bushes, enjoying the refreshing shadow of the pine wood. The cameraman will faint if he gets heat stroke under the burning sun, and perhaps in his sleep would get eaten by a blood squirrel, something akin to a werewolf. And that would be a pity. A forest dung beetle, either coming from or going somewhere, or if not that, then carrying something. The ways of the dung beetle are mysterious. We can find here the rare Martagon lily and the heartleaf oxeye, or Talekia speciosa, named after Earl Samuel Taleke. Glutinous sage with a dead nettle leaf beetle on top. A willow gentian with a bumblebee feasting on it. A forest touch-me-not and a poisonous vaneberry. A fawn troubled by flies. Right after his birth, he stays alone for long hours, laying low in the grass, wearing camouflage fur with white spots, resembling the light shadow quote-unquote game. The high underbrush on the edge of the forest is a great hideaway, and the trees protect him from the sun rays, but he cannot hide away from the flies and mosquitoes, neither this life nor after. A cub, born this year, might be strolling around in the forest. Today there are no flocks of sheep. There are no herding dogs to chase him up on the tree. Good news, because otherwise the shepherd would run to help his dog, the mother bear helps her cub, and at the end we would hear the news. Another bear attack took place. Unknown voices are filling up the forest. This cub, less than a year old, has no prejudice towards humans and is free of negative experiences. He is wandering around, but keeping visual contact with his mother, who is now moving towards me. Hard to decide, should I record the cub or the mother? These blows are distress signals of the bears, usually followed by running away or pretending to attack. the latter serving as self-defense through intimidation, not to be confused with an actual attack. "15 meters high, I am able to find the source of the noise. The martins are having their not necessarily romantic mating period." This is a very busy spot. I don't have time to adjust the focus from the martins to the bear, and don't even think of trying to stabilize all three legs of the tripod. It seems like he is determined to make it into the raspberry bush, and I am standing in his way. The focus and the framing of my shots are not the most ideal, since I'm not working from a hide on a well-prepared territory. Therefore, I cannot fulfill many of my picture quality goals. But this is not the aim. More important is to present nature realistically and authentically, and while doing this, to at least try to keep my physical well-being intact. I filmed some mushrooms as well, edible ones, a big parasol mushroom, Somerset and others. Non-consumable or useless ones like the Lentinus strigosus and the hooded false morel. For the locals, the connection with wood is part of everyday life and commerce, but the needs of the 21st century population cannot be financed solely from the income provided by the forest. Therefore, it is important to assess if this renewable resource is being overexploited, and whether or not nature will be able to reproduce itself adequately and on a reasonable timeline. These are the crucial questions concerning the forests of Transylvania. We must consider also how the vegetation influences the quality of the soil and the quantity of nutrients in it, nutrients that the animals depend on. For example, the badger collects his food at night from the soil and its surface. Ideally, a forest has a large amount of smaller clearings set at suitable distances from each other, serving as feeding spots for the wild animals. At the same time, dense forest is essential for resting, calving, and safe mating. Red deer stags. In summertime, when they are more vulnerable, they bond and form groups that retreat to the most silent parts of the forest. Their antlers are still covered with velvety skin. If one wants to see them at this time of the year, you must have the best possible knowledge of these animals, as well as awareness of self, which can be acquired only through long observations throughout the year. At the end of this process, a recording of the animals will be the only clear, tangible piece of evidence that this work was done. But the real aims of this process is to deepen the relation between human and nature, and to develop one's knowledge of self. We are hearing the continuous alert of the blackbird, titmouse, common chaffinch, and a jay. This is a warning not only to their own species, but to all to whom the Ural owl, watching from the silver fir, could mean a menace. Thanks to the twilight, the raillery with the predator fails. As a precursor of the darkness, another bear arrives. As a supplement to the raspberry, he's looking for protein-rich insects. The brown bears are not territorial. They gather at places abundant with nutrients, such as this raspberry and blackberry shrubbery, once a clearing. They will move along once the season of these berries is over. The observed animals spend most of their time in the raspberry bush, and so the agricultural damage they would cause to other forms of vegetation decreases significantly. While I am taking pictures of the moon, I am sitting on the ground between forest and clearing, completely consigned to the laws of the wilderness. Meeting wild animals at night has a different mood than meeting them at daylight. This world belongs to them. Now they are braver and less cautious, and somehow, even if conditionally, they accept my presence. The sunlight can reach the ground in the forest surrounding the clearing and favors the dense growth of the underbrush where wild boars like to dig. The badger is waiting, impatient and hungry for the secure darkness. The sense of danger is keeping him back. Caution, as an instinct, is as crucial as the physical urge for food. According to the views of the filmmakers of this piece, human interaction is not always destructive because a natural combination can evolve that ensures all necessary conditions for the evolution and sustainability of a healthy variety of species. Just as all beings can find their place in nature, humans are beings that have the capacity to find the right approach to the forest. As long as human interaction is limited to an appropriate and sustainable manner and degree, the natural state of forests can continue. After lumberjacking, careful follow-up works facilitate the quick resettlement of the species. The effective and thoughtful use of the processed raw material has great economic value and can secure livelihoods to the local communities for many generations if handled correctly. We could ease ourselves of a burden, knowing that the relation between humans and nature is going the good way.